welcome back to Caden Weather. In today's video, we're going over a major typhoon that could be headed for the Philippines coast. Now, I know this is not in our viewing area, but it's a major worldwide event, so we're still going to be covering it. But without further ado, let's get straight into it. Now, before we get straight into it, I do want to go over some things before we do, because it is on the other side of the world. There's a lot of things that are different about this. So first, yes, it's a typhoon. But if this were to be near the United States or around the United States or like close to the United States, it would be called a hurricane. So yes, this typhoon does the exact same things as a hurricane would, but it's on the other side of the world. They just call it typhoons. I'm not sure why. I did not control this, but they call it typhoons because it's on the other side of the world. So it's the same thing as a hurricane. So when I say major typhoon, whatever this name is, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but if I say major typhoon, I mean it could be major hurricane, but it's not called that. Another thing, I do not know how to pronounce the name of the typhoon. This is the name. Surigae. So I'll just say major typhoon that could be hitting Philippines. I don't know how to pronounce it. But now that we got that out of the way, let's start off with the most basic, well, not really basic, but the current information. So the location currently is 14.0 north in longitude and latitude, 126.5 east. The maximum winds is 120 knots. And if you're like me and you don't know what knots are, I translate it into miles per hour. It's 138, exactly 138.094. Let's just say 138 miles per hour. Now that's a lot. Okay, 130 miles per hour, but it's not on land. So as you can see, I'm going to be going over this in more detail here, so don't worry, but here's the Philippines. Again, this is going to be the worst of it, but it's not on the Philippines. But they're still getting heavy rain as we speak, but the worst of it is not hitting the Philippines. Minimum central pressure is 937 millibars. But as we're talking about that, here's the current infrared satellite. Let me just outline because it's kind of hard to see the Philippines. This is the Philippines here. You can maybe see in purple outline. Again, as you can probably tell, the worst of it and the eye is not on land. So that is a good thing. But that could change, okay? Right now, as we speak, coastal areas in the central coastal areas of the Philippines are getting very heavy rain, but they're not getting the worst of it. So this is a really confusing and tricky typhoon we're talking about. It may or may not hit the Philippines, and there's the worst part of it that's hitting land, and there's the actual worst part. So it's really confusing, but I'm going to go over it. So again, breaking it down. Well, simply, on the Philippines right now, they're not getting the worst of it, but they're getting rain right now. The worst of it is in the ocean. The worst of it is not on the Philippines right now, but they're getting very heavy rain. So it's still pretty bad, but they're not getting the worst of it. But I want to go ahead and show you the track so it'll make more sense. Okay, there's a lot of colors here. So the purple is the absolute worst of it, but none of the purple, thankfully, is not going to hit any type of land. So we're not going to be talking about that. Now, the red is still very, very strong, pretty severe parts of the hurricane. That is what we're going to be worrying about, because notice how these red spots, red parts here, hit parts of the Philippines. Notice that. So that means that the Philippines, the very edge of the coast, could be seeing pretty strong typhoon conditions. I almost said hurricane. Typhoon conditions. Now, look what happens here. So I don't know what kind of time they're using here, so I don't know exactly what time, but right now it's hitting this part, so again, the heavy rain could be seeing some conditions that won't be looking good. But notice how it goes, and see how the Philippines kind of curves like this? So that means that it has open ocean it's going to be hitting. But then the northern Philippines is really what I'm worrying about, because look how much red is here. So again, just because it's not the whole Philippines, this little islands here could be hitting not direct hit, but pretty hard hit. See how it's confusing here? I'm having trouble speaking because it's like there's major worst parts of it, but there's worst parts for land. So it's really confusing here. I know, I'm sorry if I'm confusing you, but the red parts are bad conditions that could be hitting the Philippines. So this is kind of a hit or miss. That's why it's hard, hit or miss. But here's the track. Let me just break down what I just said. So parts of it could be hitting the central. Look how much, so this is not going to be affecting everybody, because look how much of the Philippines is in the clear. Look how much of the Philippines won't even getting it at all. So the southern part of the Philippines not even getting anything. They're good. They're not getting anything. But look at the northern and central coast parts here. Some of it's in the red. So again, if they're not good, they could be getting hit. So let me just circle the areas that I think. So this area here, and this area right here could be seeing the most. So those two circle things you see on your screen could be getting the worst conditions. So again, a little, very close to the coast, you need to be watching out for possible pretty big conditions. Not the worst, but pretty bad conditions. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Pretty tricky forecast, isn't it? But I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Sorry I haven't uploaded in so long. But stay safe, stay weather aware. And again, major typhoon heading for the Philippines. Stay weather, again, if this was a hurricane, it could be into a category 5. So again, this is why it's such a major event. But just want to give you guys a quick update on the major typhoon. Stay safe, stay weather aware. See you in the next video. Bye.